Empowering farmers with intelligence. EFL AG-DATA presents to you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the EFL AG-DATA podcast. And we are starting a new podcast series on US-China tariff wars, reshaping Asia's feed-to-meat supply chains. I'm Alvin from EFL AG-DATA, a Singapore-based startup and sister company of eFeedLink, providing and empowering agribusinesses with real-time market insights through our market data platform, Farm Metrics Insight. And today, we are diving into how China's feed-to-meat industry is adapting to the US tariffs and the retaliatory measures and what this means to the stakeholders across Asia. I'm joined today by my colleague, Eric. Hello, Eric. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Alvin. Thank you very much. And hello to all the audiences and viewers around the world. Today, we will be focusing on China, the epicenter of the US tariff storm. And we will break into three sections. Number one is the tariff tug of war, how China is reacting to it and reshaping its feed-to-meat supply chain. Number two, we will be discussing about the 90 days countdown on the pause of the tariff implementations. Number three is the supply chain chaos. Who is the winner, who is the loser, and what happened to the market?
Yes. Let's already discuss the first part of this podcast, which is talking about the tariff tug of war between US and China. Well, China's retaliatory tariffs on US soybeans, pork, and dairy are, Eric, it's sending shockwaves, through the whole feed-to-meat supply chains. And we'd like to break it down a bit here in sections so that our viewers can also understand what this topic would cover. So first, we have the soybean squeeze. China imports about 105 million metric tons of soybeans annually, with about 22.13 million tons historically from the US. And now, Beijing's strict custom checks like the mandatory GPS coordinates for farm origins have slashed the transshipped US soy via Brazil from 70% to 95.6% accuracy. And of course, there's alternative suppliers. Well, correct. Brazil remains to be the top replacement, but China is also tapping Argentina and Russia. However, Brazil has the advantage, about 12% price advantage, and limited capacity means shortages are looming, and Brazilian prices might go up or it might go down, right?
Yeah, also pork and dairy's tariff are less impactful to the market because the imports from US were already minimum. But soybean disruptions are forcing feed mill to reformulate, to counteract to this whole situation. So feed formulations adjustment, that will be reducing some of use of the soybean meal. So the implication of that is we need to use some of the amino acid lysines to make the formulations more balanced and also at the least cost. And of course, the other additive will be kind of adjusted accordingly. So the other thing is the cost pressure. The small operators, the smaller farms that may struggle as feed price may rise eventually to about 15 to 20%, which is kind of expected or forecasted by a lot of experts. So that will squeeze a lot of profit from the small operators. So there might be a lot of reorganizations of the feed millers and some of the smaller operators.
Yes, correct. Eric, this situation is ever changing. At one point, tariffs are like this, and then all of a sudden, tariffs are like this. So this creates a lot of uncertainty, I think, in the industry and in the feed and to meat supply chains. It's creating a lot of chaos, I would say, and there's a lot of uncertainty behind it, right?
Oh, yes. And of course, we do know that Trump's behavior, it's very unpredictable. And of course, now the critical time is the 90 days countdown.
Exactly,
of
exactly.
what's going to be like during this 90 days tariff implementation pause for ASEAN countries, and what China is trying to do during this time. And it has been seen that China is now playing hardball to keep the ASEAN allies to its orbits. That's quite natural. And of course, China is also trying to leverage the Belt and Road Initiative projects. So Beijing is threatening to freeze a lot of these infrastructure projects. For example, Penang ports. So if Malaysia or other countries are going to comply with the US soybean quotas. Now, ASEAN's pressure, which is China is pushing Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia to absorb a lot of excessive poultry and feed additive surplus from China. And of course, U.S. countries' origins rules are blocking the transshipment, and China has to look for other alternatives to balance their capacity.
Yes, yes, yes. And Eric, there's this. You can see that there's this geopolitical chess move going on that would include, like we call it economic carrots, that is sweetening the BRI loans to nations that will resist, to the US demands. And there's this secondary sanctions to ASEAN countries that aligns with Washington. And yet, one source noted that ASEAN nations can't, fully resist U.S. pressure at the same time.
Yeah.
And
the Asian country will have to kind of doing a lot of balancing games so that they will benefit from the fights of the giants.
That is correct. That is correct. I think most smaller nations, as we call them, not superpowers like these two, are caught in between. And when we look at the supply chain chaos and when we ask ourselves, who's winning this and who's losing? Who are the winners? Who are the losers? I think it's clear that the winners are now U.S. domestic additive producers. Companies like CJ Group may ramp up lysine and vitamin output to replace the U.S. imports, and the Brazilian soy traders for sure are winners because China imports from Brazil, it could spike to about 30% by 2026.
Correct.
And well, unfortunately, the losers will likely be small feed mills that's lacking the capital. They lack the capacity to, reformulate or absorb the cost. And you look at U.S. exporters as well, they're on the losing end because tariffs could permanently divert China to import more from other country suppliers. So U.S. exporters are at a loss here. They'll be
and
losers
the other loser actually that if the U.S. domestic supplier is not able to produce, for example, lysine effectively and economically, so the overall cost of the feed in U.S. may not be as efficient. So in a way, the consumer or the export of the agricultural products might lose out also in long term.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, but looking at long term, how do you see this, especially considering China's moves maybe?
And I think in long term, China is hedging some bets here. They are doing more diversifications, which they have always been. They are exploring Russians, the Ukraines, the wheat, and of course they are also importing. They can import a lot of the Australian beef, and of course they are also quite advanced in other technology, and they are also using AI to do a lot of their management now. They can use AI to do feed formulations to minimize soybean or other bacterial reliance. So I think in long run, they will do more of that.
Yes. Actually, this situation is like we said. No, it will be, there will be changes. That's why this 90-day period is very crucial for the industry. I don't think it's just a waiting game anymore. I think there'll be moves sooner or later, and we are here to look after that and to deliver a lot of information to our viewers. To give, information is key here, and I think that's where EFL Ag Data can provide a lot of value to the industry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up our today, and of course, the key takeaway for this, I think, is that China's feed to meat sector is they're at a crossroads at the moment. They'll be balancing retaliation, as we may call it. There's the BRI diplomacy and domestic stability. Yeah.
Yeah, for all these stakeholders, staying alert is key. The agility is key. And leveraging tools like farm metrics that we have, farm metric insight to track real-time prices changes, and also the information that is available in the market to look at it, not just domestically. We have to look kind of act locally, but kind of look at the whole thing internationally, which is going to have multifactorial domino effect. And we have to understand the bits and pieces of this to stay ahead.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the EFL Ag Data Podcast. Our next episode, we will discuss on the Vietnam tariff battles. And if you like this, please do subscribe and follow our social media channels. Stay tuned, stay informed. See you next time.
Goodbye.